Okay, so hey everybody, we're here to talk about student success coaching at the University of Mississippi, and I am Jeremy Roberts with the Center for Student Success and First Year Experience, a learning specialist within that department for academic support, and I'm joined with Dr. Rebekah Reysen, Kellen and Betsey Sawyer, who are all student success coaches and learn from some of the best in the business, and then we're going to share our experiences with you in coaching and then tell you how you can get involved as well. So we'll start with Dr. Reysen. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Student Success Coaching Program here at the University of Mississippi?
Hi, I'm Rebekah Reysen. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic Support Programs for the Center for Student Success and First Year Experience. And I've been very fortunate to a lot of different people, different professionals, from all kinds of areas and fields. And so I was trained under the Florida State University life coaching model. And that program was established years ago. They've built a really solid program. And so the university flew me out to get trained under that program. I'm a licensed professional counselor, but don't practice in this realm of academic support. But I was able to receive this training through life coaching at Florida State, and then brought that knowledge back here so that I could train some other professionals. And we've had some amazing life coaches here at the University of Mississippi. And essentially, this program that we started here was in the fall of 2017. And so since that time, we've had 5 different coaches. They've all been amazing. And what we're looking at through this program is really helping any student at the University of Mississippi who's wanting to not only receive academic support, but also be able to learn more about adjusting to college. And so just in terms of student success coaching, under that life coaching framework, we do look at things like time management, test preparation, things that help students in terms of study habits and self-regulation and being successful in the classroom. But we also look at a lot of different things like how to get a student to feel motivated, not just one day, but multiple days out of the week in terms of their just being successful academically. However, we also want them to be happy in their time as a university student. So we want them to feel comfortable asking us questions like, campus, where how do you get a meal plan? How do you maybe have conversations with your roommates when life gets a little bit tricky? So we're looking not only at helping students academically, but also in terms of feeling really adjusted to college life, making friends, approaching professors. And if students say this is really overwhelming, they have some maybe anxiety or other extenuating circumstances, then we're always happy to refer them to the counseling center as well, or psychological services. But that's essentially what this program is about. It's helping a student holistically in their college adjustment.
Okay. So Kellen, you are currently one of our student success coaches. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved, and basically what you do with our students in an actual coaching program?
So I'm Kellen Weber. I am a second-year grad student here for counseling, and pretty much how I got involved, I had a friend who worked with Dr. Reysen in the past and got me in touch with her, and kind of just got started that way, and been a student success coach now for 2 years. Pretty much it's been a really great experience. Like I said, being a counseling major, it's not really what I'm doing as a student success coach. Like Dr. Reysen said, it's more life coaching, but that same viewpoint of taking the holistic aspect of college life and academics and trying to balance that out between your social life and everything like that. But I've seen a lot of growth in students that have come into the program and stuck with it. There's been so many different issues coming in, whether it's time management or just kind of want to figure out how to balance being in a fraternity or sorority or not being in a fraternity, sorority, and school life, because coming to the university, you don't have parents that are on you about your homework. You don't have teachers that you're seeing every single day. It's just, there's a lot of free time, and that leads to time management issues, and sometimes not being able to get homework done or prepare for tests like you should. But a lot of what I see is related to time management, and after a few sessions, usually it just comes down to accountability. We kind of get a system going of coming in. All right, so here's what you have for this week. Let's sit down and look at what's the most important thing to do right now. Let's get that done. What's next, and on down the line. And pretty much doing that each week to the point where students just come in, they already have it done. They sit down and they're like, all right, so here's what I have to do this week. I've already got X, Y, and Z done. Now I just have to do this. And it comes down to really more or less just an accountability thing, because they have someone come in and make sure that they're still staying on top of their work. So that's really the gist of what I do.
Okay. We're also joined with Betsey Sawyer. She is a life coach, but she is also one of our ADHE instructors and has been working in our department for a while. So Betsey, can you tell us how you got involved with life coaching, but you also use some of your principles in class too? So how does that work?
Absolutely. So I'm Betsey Sawyer. I have a background in law, actually, so I am a licensed attorney as well. Several years ago, I completed training with the Institute for Life Coach Training and then did my certification. So I'm a board certified life coach, started my own business. And right around the same time, I was starting to teach. So it was interesting how they both kind of worked out at the same time. Started teaching at the university as an adjunct instructor and then starting my own business as a life coach. At first, I really worked mostly with just adults, career people looking to make career changes, personal issues, whether it be relationships, spiritual progress, different things for each person, but really started moving into academic coaching. And so when I got into academic coaching, I still do a little bit of all the above, but started working with students who were not my own individual students, but who, would hire me to help them throughout the semester. And the interesting thing is a lot of the work I was doing, I noticed was also work I was doing within the classroom setting. And it's interesting because students really are very similar across the board of what they need. Those needs kind of vary depending on their backgrounds, maybe their year, their age, their major, maybe their family structure. Sometimes it depends on, do they have a sibling who's already been to college who they've learned some of these lessons from or not. But a lot of it is really, as Kellen was already saying, a lot of the focus with these students is time management. So a lot of the focus I have done with my own individual students and in the classroom, and then those who I have worked with outside the classroom setting, a lot of it is really setting goals. So this idea of time management has a lot to do with prioritizing, setting goals, and really just kind of getting into a routine of staying on top of your schedule. I've found a lot of the issues that come with students have a lot to do with kind of letting time just get away from them. So a lot of the focus is to really just implement these goal setting skills, time management skills on a regular basis, keeping a planner, making a list of things, and really just kind of trying to stay on top of things and not pushing it off and procrastinating to the last minute. And I think that's probably pretty similar for most students. It's always a really interesting thing. I teach incoming freshmen often. And so it's really interesting to watch the students because they've come from an environment where, they've been in high school where they're having to go to class every single day. And somebody is, making sure they get to school for the most part. They're there all day for the most part. And then they come home, they have homework, they have these things that they have to get done. But somebody usually is keeping kind of watch over them, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, a guardian in general. So it really just depends. But then they come to college and they're kind of thrown into this environment where they don't have somebody on top of them all the time. Their classes are a couple hours here and there. And it's the nature of college, which is like being an adult, where, you have to get yourself up and go to work every day and those sorts of things. So being able to kind of help them settle into a routine and a structure that is a little bit different from where they have been in a high school environment, but to where they're really taking responsibility for their own choices, really, learning to delay gratification and setting goals and these sorts of things. And so I've seen it a lot within the classroom structure and outside of, and it's been really interesting to kind of use those skills within and outside.
So all three of you have brought up time management, which is a topic that we're going to have a workshop on. We do several workshops every semester within academic support, and it's one that is upcoming. So what are some issues y'all see with time management related to coaching?
All right. So for me, it's just simply, again, it's a lot about the balancing of academics with the lack of responsibility that comes with all this free time that you now have when you're in college. You never had this sort of free time before, and now you can just go and nap all day if you want to. And a lot of issues arise out of that because, if you're sleeping all day or you're out and you're having fun with friends or, just not doing your homework, obviously it's going to affect grades. And like trying to be able to manage your time to set up priorities, set up goals, and be able to meet those in a reasonable amount of time and still also give yourself time to have some sort of a social life, have some sort of life outside of academics.
Rebekah, do you have anything you want to talk about with time management?
So I would say, just in terms of time management, there's a lot of connection, I think, that students make to managing time with motivation. So with motivation, Brad, I felt this way too. Okay, I can get some stuff done when I'm really motivated. And then when I'm not so motivated, it's a little bit harder. It's like, running up a hill, trying to press a big boulder up a hill, trying to get things all taken care of. It's just like fighting against something that feels, it just feels kind of unnatural when you're not feeling motivated. Of course, helpful in terms of managing time, but I look at motivation as more of a behavior instead of an emotion. So if people can just kind of say, okay, I'm just going to tackle a little bit of something today, whatever it is that's due in one of their classes, and trying to get that one item done could lead to maybe getting 10 items. And a habit, the easier it becomes. I noticed too, when I was an undergrad, the busier I was, the better I was at managing time. Some people really like that approach. Others like to have a little bit more flexibility and room. And I think it's important to think about what that goal is. Everyone's going to have their own goals, their own, career path that they're trying to follow. And calling just making up a routine that works well and trying to stick with that and finding some rewards in that process. And again, kind of looking at motivation as being something that's going to ebb and flow, kind of like the stock market. Some days students are going to feel really motivated. Other days they're not going to feel so motivated. And just trying to do at least some.
Okay. And Betsy, you talked a lot about the time management between high school and college. What are some things that you see like in your teaching that you're able to bring in aspects of coaching with time management to your students for?
And so I'm going to add on a little bit to what Kellen and Dr. Reysen, what they were saying to answer that question. I think one of the really interesting things is, and I hear this a lot, students will say, well, I don't really want I really don't want to manage my time because I really am more of a go with the flow kind of person. And so the interesting thing about that, though, is the phrase, go with the flow kind of person, is that if we're not careful, that go with the flow mentality really seeps into our work life to where we don't really fill the holes of time. And so when you don't fill the holes of time, you end up waking up and hours have passed by and you haven't really gotten anything done or accomplished. And I think that what happens, what I have seen within the classroom structure is that if there is not a really proactive application of really setting time and setting these goals as far as looking at the day and saying, okay, it's Monday. I have, class from, for about 3 hours today. What about before and after those classes? How do I work with that time? What'll end up happening is by the time the student walks back to the dorm and then after class and then sits down and maybe starts playing video games or, goes and gets some lunch and then realizes an hour and a half has passed and they've been with their friends and chatting and all those sorts of things. Without really accounting for all these gaps in time, students end up waking up and realizing half of a semester has gone by and I haven't really done a whole lot. So some exercises that I have utilized, which I think we all probably have within different classes within EDHE, is I like to look at, okay, where are you spending your time as a whole? So, I do one of those time monitoring exercises that we've all, kind of worked with that's within our course packet and stuff. And I have students look at it and say, okay, where are you, if you add up the hours every single day that you were spending sleeping, which involves napping as well, or, working out, or walking to class, or spending with friends, or just kind of hanging out, you get to kind of see how much time has really and truly been wasted throughout the day and how much has actually been utilized for something really good. And, things like working out are great. Going and, eating lunch and dinner, those are all great. But when you start to spend hours and hours and hours a day doing those things, you're starting to kind of miss where that time can be utilized for your schoolwork or your studies or, say you have a job. And so a lot of it is looking at the fun aspect of life. And like Dr. Reysen was just talking about motivation as a behavior rather than a feeling, right? Looking at the fun aspect and saying, okay, where can I plug fun into my day rather than where can I plug work into my day? And it's really looking at it and structuring your life around your work schedule, and at this moment in their life, for most of them, it's just school. And then where in there can they add fun? I like to tell mine, if you're going to study and you have a really short attention span and it's something maybe that you struggled with for a long time, don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Set timers for yourself. Don't try to study for 2 hours straight if you know that your attention's going to be gone after about 27 minutes. So if 27 minutes is your max, set a 5-minute timer, take a little break, and then come back and do another 27 minutes. And so just try to give them little activities. Sometimes I utilize those as extra credit to see, okay, well, where have they utilized that during the week? And then they can write about it and give me a little essay on it.
Okay. So what is a standard, if there is such a thing, coaching session look like? What are, like, if somebody, say I want to get involved, I need a student success coach here at the university, what does a session look like? Do I need to bring anything with me? Do I need to have some questions kind of prepared? What are you looking for when you first meet with a student? We'll start with Kellen, because I know most of the student success coaching forms that come into our office, we send to him. So what does a standard meeting look like, or a typical meeting look like?
So for me, I prefer that students come more or less prepared, like as though they're coming to class. Bring a syllabus for each class, bring whatever it is that you're working on for that class at that time. Especially if you're having any issues with that, not that I'm going to be a tutor, but just so I can kind of get a feeling of where you're at in this class. Like where's your head at in this class right now? Having some sort of questions of, okay, so what do we do here? What can I do to better my academics? What can I do to progress further? And I think that at least having some sort of preparedness coming in is definitely crucial, because then it's left up to me to try to figure out what's going on throughout your entire semester so far. We're meeting for the first time. I don't know who you are. We got to, it's something that we have 30 minutes to do. So trying to build up that rapport quickly, so that by the end of the first session or by the second session, we can actually have a plan to sit down and go through. All right, so here's what we think that you need. You think that if time management is something that you really struggle with, so let's fill this out. Let's fill out this time management packet together. Let's look at where your time is being wasted. Okay, so homework. You're having trouble doing your homework, getting it done on time, getting it done like before the day of. So let's set aside time in this time management packet. What do you plan to do? And going through and just kind of setting up objectives like that and objective planning. And then, like I said, for the most part, because it's a routine after 2-3 weeks coming in, and you already kind of have a plan of what our meeting is going to look like. I'm going to ask you, so what do you have going on this week? How'd it go sticking to your schedule last week? Was there anything that changed? Is there anything that we can change? Is there something that you want to add? Something you want to get rid of? And just kind of having those sorts of things in mind.
Okay. And Betsy, what does a typical meeting look like in your life coaching realm?
So it's very similar if it's an academic coaching sort of meeting. For me, the initial consultation is really just kind of to ask the other, the individual, the client, the prospective client, what is it that you hope to gain out of this? For some students, it's just, and really they need somebody to hold them accountable. For some students, it's their GPA is lower than they would like for it to be. And so there's also accountability with that, but a lot of it is helping them kind of set goals, set schedule, working really on prioritization, time management, those sorts of things. And, it's really interesting because it's very similar as it would be with working with students. And within the classroom setting, if I was to meet with them one-on-one, or within the Success Center, as Kellen was discussing, a lot of it is just sitting down and really trying to figure out what is it that individual needs. I heard somebody say once that coaching is like holding up a mirror to the client. And the interesting thing about that is that the whole basis of the idea of coaching is that all the answers really lie within that individual. And they know those answers. It's a certain number of questions and level of questions that have to be asked that are able to really pull them out of that individual. And so it's not really telling them what to do. When I work with individuals one-on-one, I don't like to tell them what to do, because they know what they need. And often, especially if it's a student with a GPA that is lower than they would like for it to be, or they're not taking as many hours as they would like, I do find that those individuals often have very similar things they're struggling with. And a lot of it obviously is time management and those sorts of things. If you were able to ascertain that it's not that the major is too difficult, or that it's just something they're really not interested in, if you can kind of cross those off the list, then you can really get to the bottom of the fact that it's probably they're struggling with prioritizing their time, really just actually sitting down and making themselves do it. And so that's really a lot of what the meetings look like, is really just helping hold that individual accountable throughout the week, of how do you tackle each week, what this week looks like, rather than getting so far ahead with saying, okay, what are you going to do in 2 months? It's okay, well, how do we start small and kind of build from there with goal setting?
Okay. And Rebekah, we do in our office academic consultations and coaching. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between those two I know we work with freshmen primarily for coaching, and then academic consultations can be anybody, but in general, what's kind of the difference between those two things?
I think that's a good question. That's something that comes up pretty frequently. I would say the difference between student success coaching and academic consultations are are very much focused on study skills, study habits, whereas student success coaching is based more on that life coaching framework of how do other things in life kind of impact academics. So again, not in terms of a counseling framework, but in terms of helping students learn how to advocate for themselves, how to approach professors, how to approach roommates, how to approach getting day-to-day tasks completed. So I would say there's more of an emphasis on those life skills and just managing day-to-day life logistics in student success coaching, whereas academic consultations are a little bit more focused just on those study skills and habits.
Okay. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add to what Dr. Reysen was just saying as far as the interesting thing with academic coaching. It's really one of the things that as far as my time in this area of work that I have noticed is, Dr. Reysen had mentioned we're talking to professors and roommate issues and those sorts of things. Something that might seem as simple as helping an individual, a student, write an email to an instructor, helping them to kind of learn how to communicate with their instructor might seem like something really simple to those of us who have been out in the workforce for, a considerable amount of time. But given how different the communication has changed, how communication has changed over the years with phone usage and those sorts of things, helping students who are 18, 19, 20, those sorts of ages, really like write an email to an instructor and to use words that are really more appropriate for the classroom structure, rather than things like hey, or how's it going, really helping them sit down and saying, dear Dr. So-and-so, and helping them with grammar and all of that. It might seem really simple, but it's amazing how far those skills really go, and how much in coaching those sorts of things really help them as they learn to draft those emails, as they learn to draft cover letters and those sorts of things when they go to apply for jobs later on. And so those are just really interesting skills that, you sometimes don't learn it in middle school and in high school.
So we've talked about some benefits, or what is becoming some benefits of coaching. To sum up what you do with coaching, how would you say, or what would you say would be one of the biggest benefits that you've seen in coaching with our students? Has there been something that you've seen as a major breakthrough in working with the student, something that you've seen that has really helped all of your students in general? So if you were to basically have a soapbox for a few minutes, what would you say to sum up everything that you have for coaching? What would that be? We'll start with Rebekah Reysen.
Well, I would say, this is such an important job. And like Betsy was an advocate, someone in their corner that's there for them through thick and thin. And college can be this amazing period of time for students, and it can also be one of the most overwhelming periods of time for them as well. And so having a student success coach and a life coach is really enjoy college, but also to know somebody is always there to support them through thick and thin. Research also that we've conducted on this program shows that students who engage in the program are having a great connection with their coach, and that they're also more likely to persist than those who don't participate in the program. So not only are we having students report that they've enjoy these interactions with their coaches, that their coaches have helped them out through a lot of situations, but we're also seeing that in our research that this is an effective program.
Kellen?
So just from what I've seen, for those that stick with it, like, I think that the most important thing is just being able to have that person to come in and hold you accountable, and that relationship that you build through those meetings. I think it is very important to, one, them wanting to come back. You have to be open. You can't be judgmental. You have to, I like to, be able to relate to my students, because I had issues with procrastination and time management and all that sort of thing. We're all human. We have those issues. And I think it's important to convey that and make sure that students know that they're not alone, and that a lot of other people struggle with the same problems, and a lot of other people are in the same situations. And that they know that, we're here to help in any way that we can. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just being able to help a student, because I've been there. I'm sure at one point y'all have all been there, just making sure they know they're not alone throughout this process.
Yeah. And Betsy?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the beautiful thing is watching students go from this place of being very, very determined, but also very confused and very kind of uncertain about what they want to do and how they're going to do it and all those sorts of things. It's really beautiful to watch that transformation from like point A to point B, to when they get to the end of the semester and they have finished the semester with a much higher GPA. They have done well on their exams. They have shown up to the majority of their classes, because things like, that internal disappointment, or, feeling like you're not meeting expectations, or, all of those things can really add to a student's discouragement. It keeps a student from wanting to go to class. It keeps a student from really wanting to even do an assignment because they feel discouraged about it. And to really watch them just really blossom from this point A to point B of being so proud of themselves is really wonderful. I love getting emails or texts from parents for students that I work with individually that say, I got a text from my daughter or my son today that they got an A on their exam and they're so excited and they worked so hard this week. Thank you so much. Those kind of texts or emails just really brighten my day. And it's the same with working with students within the classroom structure, watching them be able to really come outside of themselves because maybe they're shy or they're struggling with anxiety and they are too nervous to go talk to their instructor in another department. But they email them, they go meet with them, and they learn something new that they can really utilize for the next test or homework assignment. And so those things are really, really, it's why I do it. I do it because I like to watch the progress and I like to help them along in that progress. And I think that part of it is just remembering where we each come from, the times that we've all struggled with time management or, being, the person who was scared to, go to class because their professor was intimidating or, to write that email or whatever it is. All those things are really, can really hold a student back if they don't have the right cheerleader in their corner. And I love to watch that progress with them.
So that pretty much sums up what we have today for Student Success Coaching. I really do appreciate the three of you being here to talk to us about what we can do for our students. Here at the Center for Student Success, we have a link on our website that I will put in the description below. And I'll also tag Betsy's information for her life coaching in the box for descriptions as well. But is there any final words you want to say or have about student success coaching before we leave for the day?
I would just say, don't be afraid to ask for help. We all have to ask for help across the board with something. Somebody has to help us with every area of our life at some point in time. And, if you're struggling with anything that you think you might need some help with, just reach out. That's what we're here for.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I do appreciate it. And we will be in contact soon. Have a good one. Bye, y'all.
Thank you.